Welcome to NASPA Tonight. This is the place to get all your Scrabble news in 25 minutes or less. We've got a fully packed show tonight, and the first thing that I want to do is introduce my co-host for the evening. Let me get these lower thirds on the right side. My co-host is none other than Dr. Ken Rubin. Ken, how are you?
Hey, Josh. Hey, everybody. I'm doing well, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled that you extended the invite.
That's fantastic. Now, I was really excited to have you on. We've, because we're both in the Northeast, we've been to a number of tournaments together, and I wanted to see what is the number one thing that I tell you when we go to tournaments together.
The number one thing, I feel like this is the dating game. How well do we know each other, Josh, at this point? The number one thing is, I think it's either stop quackling or where are you?
I
think either one of those is a good bet, especially if it's late at night and there's a lot of action happening. If you mix those together, it's where is Ken? Oh, he's probably quackling and not in the after hours room.
So
that's kind of what I'm thinking here.
That's exactly what I was thinking, and we want to kind of give your credentials. You're an 1800 rated player. That makes you a Scrabble expert, and you are definitely dedicated to quackling. And what Quackle is, for those that don't know, it's a Scrabble tool for analyzing your games after you finish playing them, find out what you missed, stuff like that. Tell me about how you use Quackle to get better at Scrabble.
Absolutely. So, this is my second run at Scrabble. I started playing, I know you didn't specifically ask this, but it's part of the broader context here. I started playing at the end of high school and into college around 2003, 4, 5, and into 2006. And then I took a break and I started playing again. But from the first go around for playing, I always thought that analyzing the game, trying to get better, that was what was most exciting to me. I even remember when there was Maven, and that was a major tool. And so this was before Quackle. But certainly once Quackle was instituted, it became for me like almost more exciting than the game itself would be to analyze the game and simulate positions and try to figure out, what I could do differently. And that's just something at every tournament. Sometimes I can't wait until the end of the tournament. I want to see how the games went, and I'll analyze them during the tournament. But it's something certain players do it, other players don't. I think there's no one right way to do it, but I think it's really fun to do that, and it helps me get better. I could not have become an 1800 player without all the insights I gained from quackling.
Gotcha. So do you find Quackle your most important Scrabble tool?
For sure. I mean, I use Isabel like everyone else, and I make flashcard decks, and I think everyone sort of is doing different things, but in the end, there's similar things, high prop, low prop setting. But in terms of actually trying to build my Scrabble intuition, I think Quackle is the best. If someone has an opening rack, if they're on an opening rack, if there's one bingo, obviously you play it. There's no need for deep analysis, but a lot of times when you have 2, 3, even 4 plays that seem reasonable, and without that feedback that I get from a computer, even though it's imperfect, and this is something I'm sure Jackson, our regular host of the show, could go on a lot about, and a lot of the other like top players. But I've gained a lot of insight as to what actually is good, what I should be looking for, and without that, I think you can still be a very good player, but I think you need some kind of feedback tool to really understand the game at a higher level, which I'm still trying to do. I'm not nearly there yet. I'm still trying.
Well, obviously, you've definitely had some success, but I know you have greater ambitions, which makes me think of what your Scrabble story is. You referenced this earlier, that you got into it and then you took a long break. So what happened there? What brought you back? Stuff like that.
So something that I would always tell people, if people ask, what happened, you hadn't played in a tournament for 8-9 years. I went to med school after I graduated from. I went to Columbia for undergraduate, and then right away I went to med school at Mount Sinai in New York. And I remember, actually, Josh, we haven't spoken about this, but even the first week of school, I remember reading the Can-Am book, which somehow to me was like a an amazing tool. It was like a black market copy that I got somehow. And maybe that's still out there someplace you can get it. But, Scrabble was still so much on my mind. I had just played in the Nationals in 2006, and I was still very dedicated to it. In fact, I played in a tournament in Lake George in my first semester of med school. Did not go very well. I think I came in last place or maybe close to it. And I just decided, I can't do both really well. And I really wanted to keep getting better at Scrabble and feel good about my Scrabble performance. And I decided that I just couldn't do that. So that's why I took the break. But I never lost interest. I always followed along, what was happening in Nationals, what was happening in the Scrabble world, as much as I could. And I never lost my passion for the game. It was just only recently, the last couple of years, that I feel like, okay, like let me try to do this again and try to do it even better than I did before.
All right, well, let's talk about medical school for a minute. You are a doctor. That's why your nickname to me will be Dr. Ken.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Forever. Not that many people call you Dr. Ken yet. But maybe this episode will change that. But you are not necessarily a practicing doctor, because you are the CEO of a medical startup, right?
Educational, teaching,
yes.
Tutoring. Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's very unconventional, I guess. Leaves more time for Scrabble, which is good, which is really what it's all about, I guess, to our listeners out there. Everyone can understand. But I guess I took a non-traditional path outside of Scrabble. Medicine. My biggest passion has always been teaching, sort of thinking about knowledge and how do we process it? How do we communicate with others? And I've always done tutoring and different teaching activities. And I decided to take a little bit of break after finishing med school. And most of the time people will go on to their residency training and then later training and eventually, function as a full doctor. But in the interim, I did a lot of teaching activities and tutoring, and I really loved it. I loved the freedom and just following my passion, and one thing led to another. I started this company that does online tutoring and consulting with medical people all over the world, completely online. Amazing. And it's been great. And we've been doing this for now, it's the third or fourth year that we're doing it. And that actually the beginning of the company coincided with my return to Scrabble, because even though I work really hard, no one works harder than you, Josh. You have a full-time job and you're doing all straight media work. But, even though I work really hard, I have more of a flexible schedule, and that allows me to play Scrabble and also work on the company.
Perfect. Well, this is why I wanted to have you on as co-host this week, because one of the things that we share in common is we both essentially work at startups at different levels of development, to be sure. But I work at this company that makes the platform that we're broadcasting on now. And some of my favorite times that we've gotten to hang out is when we talk about just sort of what startup life is like. And there's really never any end to the amount of work to be done.
But it's a blessing in the sense that you're interested in it. And I can tell those late nights at different tournaments, if we're in your room or hanging out with Jackson or someone and, talking about this stuff, it's a passion and an interest. And I don't know about you. I know, our work is slightly different, but even though I work really hard, I don't always feel like I'm working, or rarely. I feel like, right. Of course I'm going to try to figure out how to solve this problem or continue to add to what we're doing. So I feel very lucky that I can do it and that it's something that's viable. And I think you feel similarly. I mean, you really enjoy
for sure
the work that you're doing.
I really believe, the secret to life is to be working at something that you enjoy. And I think we're going to talk with a couple of guests who would probably subscribe to that theory, or at least we should be talking to young Jack Peters about that.
Strapping young Jack Peters. That's how he prefers to be addressed. That's what he told us before the show. Right. Yeah. So we have some great guests. We have Jack, and then we have David Pearl. I'm super excited to talk with both of them. And Josh, I'll follow your lead, since you are the maester, thinking Game of Thrones. You're the master or the maestro of this format. So why don't you take it away?
Okay. So what we're going to do here is we are going to bring in. Give me 1 second here. We're going to bring in our special guest for an interview. I wanted to show everybody, this is part of the little promotion that we did. This is where in 225 games, our next guest achieved an 1800 rating. And here to have some fun with us is none other than, oh wait, let's put him in the big window, is none other than Jack Peters. Jack, how are you tonight?
Hey guys, I'm good, thank you.
Hey Jack, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Now, Jack, you're coming across just a little bit quiet for me, so whatever you can do to project more or get a little closer to the mic or whatever would be helpful.
Okay.
But it's really nice to, there we go. It's really good to have you on the show. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Cool. That's a little better. So good. So
yes.
I first met you at, I believe it was the 2016 Nationals. Is it 16 that your first Nationals? Something like that? Or am I wrong? Or was it 2015?
2015 was my first Nationals, but I think we met for the first time at the 2017 Nationals.
Oh, okay, right. Yes, I'm getting the two things confused. So at the 2017 Nationals, I was doing social media coverage, and we were talking with contenders for their divisions. And I believe that was the case. And you were one of those people, and we put you on we did a little interview with you, and we got a chance to get acquainted. But certainly, I'll ask Ken, why are we excited to be talking with Jack Peters tonight? What's the big headline when you think of Jack Peters in the Scrabble world?
Well, I mean, firstly, Jack and I go way back. I consider us old pals. It's always great to see him at tournaments and talk at length with him about various matters, Scrabble and not Scrabble. But I think, Josh, what you're getting at again is Jack's meteoric rise. Anyone who stalks cross tables, like I certainly do all the time, I mean, has noticed that Jack just continues to ascend through the rankings. And I think, we're going to ask the questions here that everyone in our audience is wondering, which is, first of all, who is this man, this mystery man, and what's his story? How is he doing this? Absolutely. So Jack, maybe tell us a little bit about, the recent run you've been on, skyrocketing through the rankings and sort of your feelings on Scrabble these days in your Scrabble situation.
Okay, yeah. So you talk about my rise like a little bit under the radar, and I feel the same way about it. Like when I started playing in tournaments back in 2015, I didn't really have any expectations about like how I would do or where I would eventually end up. I was just playing, because I like Scrabble, which is the only reason any of us should play. And I think like that mindset of not putting pressure on myself has actually helped me to succeed. So I don't go into tournaments thinking like, I have to win these games and have to get my rating to this point. It's just, I go in just, I'm going to have fun and whatever happens, happens.
Fantastic. Well, considering, you say whatever happens, happens, you have been doing quite a lot of winning. So I thought what would be interesting to do is to take a look at your, this is what a lot of us like to do in our spare time, is deep dive on cross tables. So you've only played, I think it's 19 tournaments, 225 tournament games, and you are, one of TWL's newest 1,800 players. So I think that's why there's some excitement surrounding you. And if you look at the numbers, almost every tournament you've been going up and up. And what my first question was going to be, looking at this list, is you play those two club tournaments in Cambridge in 2004 and 2005. Were one of your parents a part of the club? Like, you must have been super young.
Jack was a 3-year-old prodigy. He couldn't stop him as a toddler.
Yeah.
Tell us about those two tournaments.
Yeah, those do stick out, so I was expecting you might ask about those. So those were actually put on by my uncle, Ben Greenwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the first one I played in was, both of them I played in when I was 8 years old. And, I guess the same way that I go into tournaments now. I went in back then just trying to, have fun. And back then I really didn't have any expectations about winning games or whatever. So.
And not to date you, but how old were you for these tournaments?
So I was 8 years old for both of those.
Okay, gotcha. Well, there you go.
So, Josh, can I go ahead and ask a question? Yes, Jack, since we're looking at this graphic here, something that stands out to me, and I mentioned this to Josh before our show, the Albany tournament from 2017, where you finished 10-12. And that was it looks like that was your first multi-day Division I tournament. I certainly remember the first time I played in Division I. It was extremely exciting for me. I mean, these are the figures you read about in Word Freak and sort of like the luminaries of the Scrabble world. And it was a little intimidating, but also really exciting for me. And that was your first multi-day tournament. Now, I remember that tournament. You and I didn't play, but I remember that you had a really difficult start. 0-8, or maybe not at that bad, but it was really rough in the beginning, and you fought back and you ended up, a very respectable 10-12, and you beat a number of really good players in the second half. And I was telling Josh how impressed I was then and now, as we talk about it, that mentally you were strong enough to sort of deal with that struggle early and then make the second half really strong. So I just wondered, do you have any thoughts or comments about that tournament and just about your mindset in general as a player? And does that maybe shed any light on how you approach the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you were talking about, just like you, I was very excited, but at the same time, both very excited and very scared to play in that field with, all these legendary players that, I've read about, these hallowed names of Scrabble. And as you said, it did start out very poorly for me. I believe at one point I was 2-5, then had a 7-game losing streak to go to 2-12, and then won my last 8 games to finish 10-12.
Wow.
So
wow. Well, what do you tell yourself when you're 2-12? I mean, you're hoping that it goes well. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, I may lose many of these games because it's a tough field, and in fact, that happens. What's sort of the internal dialogue when you're 2-12 and trying to figure out how to move forward for the last part of the tournament?
Yeah, at that point in time, I was definitely pressing. I sort of expected myself, which like I said, it's something I don't normally do, but I was expecting myself see how I measure up to all these great players, see if I can really compete with them. And obviously at that point, I was thinking, this is hopeless. I'm never going to be at the same level as these guys. So during the middle of the tournament, I tried to just stop putting so much pressure on myself and play the way I've always been playing my entire life. And that translated to good results in the second half. So that was really a great feeling. Absolutely.
Nice.
It's very impressive.
Looking at the cross tables run here, I think it's interesting. So 2015, you basically debut at the Nationals and you're in the playoffs that year. It's always tough to tell what is going on with the playoffs. Were you, I see you at semifinals and consolation, but does that mean it was you won the quarterfinals but were knocked out of the semifinals? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but essentially that's obviously a top 4 finish, something like that, or top maybe just outside of that, depending on what the final record was. Is that right?
Yeah, I finished up 4th that year. Okay,
perfect. And then we've got 2017, where you pick up the win with an 24-6, and I guess that's a bye. But 24-6, that's amazing. You win that Division 3, and last year Division 2, you come in 13th place. I've got 2 questions. One, do you plan to attend Reno? Because obviously you would be qualifying for Division 1. And, how do you expect to do there, I guess is the second question.
So first, yes, I do plan to attend Reno.
Awesome.
Hopefully. I will be playing in Division 1 if I do. So I'm going to try to learn from my mindset going into Albany, which is that I'm not going to stress over all the different names of the competition I'm going to be playing. And I'm just gonna really enjoy the experience. And I mean, it's been a dream of mine to play in Division 1 ever since I really got serious about tournament Scrabble. So it's like something I've been working towards for the past 4 or 5 years. So I'm just so excited about that aspect of it. And I'm just gonna go in and have fun and not think about anything else, ideally.
Very good. And very quickly, the tournament that put you over 1,800, the Woburn tournament, is that sort of, I don't even know where Woburn is, to be honest. Like, I know it's near Boston, but is that, anyway, tell us about that tournament. You go 7-0, you pick up some nice acceleration points, and it puts you over 1,800.
Well, first it's pronounced Woburn.
Okay, Woburn. All right.
Pronounced Woburn. So anyway, yeah. I mean, that was just an amazing feeling. It was, and I was as shocked as anyone when I finished up the day undefeated against like all these amazing players that I'm playing against. And I definitely did not expect my rating to increase that much, all the way over 1,800. So I benefited from the acceleration points, as you said. That day it was just, it was one of those days when everything just falls into place. And like, I could point to mistakes that I made in every single game that could very easily have cost me. But, I just barely pulled out these games that I needed to and got more, not so much like just drawing everything in the bag every single game, but just getting the right tiles at the right time and bringing the right plays at the right time. And those are, those little differences, those little things make all the difference in the game Scrabble.
For sure. Ken, do you have
sure? I'm wondering. I mean, you're saying you don't put too much pressure on yourself, and I think the mindset that you mentioned at the Albany tournament, the second half, I think that's the mindset that a lot of top players have. This idea of just understanding the unpredictability of the game, and anytime I hear someone saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna win the next 5, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that," I mean, a lot of it is not in our control. I mean, all we can control is just trying to make the best play on every turn. It's cliche, but I do think the best players tend to have that mindset. So we don't want to look too far ahead, but what are your upcoming goals in Scrabble? I mean, you've improved so much to this point. You're going to be in Division 1 in Reno. I'm also looking forward to playing in Reno. Josh, I know you'll be there. What are your bigger goals? How much do you want to keep improving? And do you see yourself continuing to play tournament Scrabble, for years to come?
Yeah, so to be honest, I wouldn't say I really have any specific goals because I've already gone way beyond anywhere I could have ever expected when I started playing. So it's just the general goal of continuing to improve, like not shooting for a particular rating threshold or anything like that, but really just improving my game, becoming the best player that I can possibly be.
Nice. Now, I wanted to just change the subject just a little bit. I see the kind of concrete wall behind you. It looked like when we were in a wider shot, you had some kind of bunk behind you. So that makes me think either A, you are in a college dormitory, or B, prison. Could you clarify which one of those institutions you're at tonight?
I'm not really too sure myself, but I think it would be classified by other people as a college dormitory. So
very good. Where do you go to school and what are you taking?
I go to Brandeis University. It's in Waltham, Massachusetts, and I'm double majoring in economics and history.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you caught some of the conversation that Ken and I had. The only advice I can ever give to anyone young is definitely find a job where you can have some fun. And I think Ken would double down on those comments.
Totally. I mean, you hear that. I remember hearing that, and part of me always thought, is that real, or that's just one of those things you say, but really you want to, to do finance or law or one of these jobs where you're going to make money and or you just totally out of touch, the person who's giving you advice. But now, a number of years later, I think that's the right advice. If you like what you do, you're going to be really good. None of us could be any kind of Scrabble players if we didn't love the game. Some people don't always show it. They play, put on a cool outer exterior. Oh, I just show up, whatever. No, I mean, no one is going to work this hard and think this hard and devote this much time unless they love it. No one really good at Scrabble doesn't love the game. I think that's true in life too. I mean, if you don't like what you're doing, you're probably not going to be that good at it, and you're probably not going to like it. So even if it's something where it seems to sort of veer off what other people seem to be doing, in the end, they'll look at you and they'll look up to you like, wow, Jack is really doing his own thing like that, or Josh is doing his own thing. That's cool. I wish I could do that too. So I think, Josh, that's great advice to give anyone in college, really anyone of any age. We can give each other that advice after the show.
For sure. Usually what I do is I bookend that with advice, is that if you do get into a job that you don't like, while you're still young, get the hell out. Because these jobs, they move you along, you make a little more money, you take on more responsibility, and then that's it, man. You were like trapped.
Jack, are you looking to go to grad school, or are you looking to start working when you come out of college?
I wouldn't say I've decided right now. I'll probably would love to go to grad school if I was able, but I couldn't say for sure right now.
That is fair.
Okay, well, listen, I want to thank you, Jack, for being on the show. We've got another guest that we're going to go to here. Jack, what's your next tournament, by the way?
I'm not sure, because some of the tournaments coming up the next few months might conflict with my exams and whatever.
Yeah, of course.
But I'll definitely look to play at least a couple during the summer. So
very good. Okay, well, listen, Jack, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jack.
Let's go back over here. And that was awesome.
That was great. Nothing like talking with my old pal, Jack Peters. We always have a great conversation.
Very good. So now, everybody who's watching who had to sort of adjust their volume up and down, we should be good from this point. Jack was a little bit on the quiet side, but I think that was a technology thing. We'll get that fixed up the next time Jack is on the show. But here comes our next guest, which is going to have no issue with volume if I know anything. Here's what we're going to be talking about, Ken. We're going to be talking about David Pearl, who's going to talk to us about West Coast Scrabble and his upcoming Pacific Coast Open, which is coming in a few weeks. So here he is, the man, the one and only, David Pearl. How are you? Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, David.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Ken. Nice to see you.
Welcome to NASPA Tonight.
Thank you. It's actually good to be the first West Coast or the only West Coast guy to be on here.
There's definitely an East Coast bias. I found myself when I was promoting the show tonight saying, hey, are you snowed in tonight? Why don't you watch NASPA Tonight? So how's the weather out there for you, David?
Well, I'm sure it's about 50 or 60 degrees warmer than Midwest where you're at. We're in the 50s and 60s here. We may have a little bit of rain tomorrow, but that's pretty rare for us.
Right. So you're in Southern California, right? You're in Orange County. Is that right?
Right. I'm actually here in Long Beach at my office. I grew up in Orange County, about 10 minutes away from where the tournament is going to be. Home of Disneyland, South Coast Plaza, Fashion Island, Performing Arts Center. There's a lot of culture down there. It's not just suburbia.
I'm sold. I'm moving out there, Josh. Sorry, I'm gonna have to leave you. It sounds very good. I think, what is it, like negative 30 degrees in Chicago, or the wind chill? Something.
That's absurd. What I'm reading. I'm seeing from my other Midwestern Scrabble friends, I'm seeing some below zero numbers out there. So, possible selling point to the Pacific Coast Open. We have pretty good weather, and I learned my lesson not to have an outdoor tournament in Southern California. The first one didn't go quite as planned. We had a rare, just monsoonal wet day for Southern California.
And was the tournament all outside, the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, Josh, picture those big wedding tents.
Right.
And so it's semi-enclosed, but there's water coming in underneath, and it's cold, and we have players that weren't wearing jackets because who needs a jacket here? And that was one of the few days you needed one. So I'm still hearing back from some friends like the Caymans about that.
Nice. Very good. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because you may, I think you were telling me, have some open playing space at the Pacific Coast Open coming up. So why don't you give us sort of your top line pitch for the West Coast Open?
Okay, so Pacific Coast Open, I believe that a good tournament, I go to quite a bit of tournaments, so they should have 3 criteria. Location, location, location. And we have great location, 5-minute Uber ride away from Orange County Airport. Flights are still cheap for a couple weeks for those coming from other states, and I think the prices go up. Second, the event hotel. This used to be the John Wayne Duke Hotel. Amazing, and it was renovated last year into this beachy art theme. So you might have some pictures I sent over to you, Josh. And I'm proud to have this hotel because I've been to some other venues, and those are nice, but this is legitimate 4-star hotel. So the people that are coming here get a good Scrabble rate of $139 per night. And so the event hotel is good. Finally, the format. A lot of people like opens. A few people don't like them. So we have an open. Normally the light division is cut off at 1,300. Well, we're making the light division up to 1,700 here. And so
okay.
So the open division is over 1,700. I made a slight mistake of doing it a higher stakes event, but I've lowered the entry fees. So they're still 140 for the open and 100 until February 2nd. Then they go up a few dollars.
Okay, gotcha. So you revised some pricing, is that right?
Right. I saw my friend Joey Kraftchick had done a successful high stakes tournament back east. Yeah. And I wanted to try to duplicate that, but got to be flexible as a director. And so I lowered the pricing back down. And we even have one player playing in the Collins division from England. He's going to be out here on business.
Fantastic. And what are the dates and how many games? Like, give us the base details here.
Okay, so this is coming up about 4.5 weeks away. You know, February is a short month. So it's March 2nd and 3rd, and it's a 2-day event. This is my first multi-day event. 15 games, 8 on the first day, 7 on the second day. I'm co-directing it also with David Whitley, who's really good with the technology and the numbers there. So I'm doing most of the promoting and organizing.
Very good. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to have this tournament and sort of what your thoughts on, California Scrabble are. Like, for me, being on the East Coast, I've never traveled to, like Seattle area, Oregon, California. Like, I've never done a tournament on that. And I haven't even done a tournament up here in Canada on Vancouver, but that's definitely on my bucket list. But definitely there's a higher concentration of players on the East Coast. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on the West Coast and what your goals are with this tournament?
Well, I think the West Coast mostly is healthy, especially the Berkeley area. We have some of the highest concentration of great players, but that's 400 miles north. The California Open has been a big success. Ed de Guzman, Chris Morgan have been running for 10 years. But we haven't had many multi-day tournaments. This is the first one in 5 years. So now that I got my feet wet doing a few one-day tournaments that I've got great feedback on, I thought it was time to graduate. We have a huge market here of players, and I wanted to attract some of the other players from around the country and kind of do what the California Open is doing, but making it a Pacific Coast. It's open to everybody.
Right. And so this is like seasonally, it's going to be a pretty warm tournament. Ken, I'm going to show you some pictures here that David sent along. So here's the pool at the event, right?
Bring your Speedos, everyone.
Okay. This is what your room would look like. So nice kind of, I don't know, would you call this with the colors and stuff? I guess this looks like a California hotel room, right?
Very much so.
And then the interior of the hotel, just some, nice looking stuff.
That's very nice.
Very artsy. And I can't say enough about the host. The host that's working with us is very excited to have us there. Yeah. If the tournament is a success and we get enough people, because we still have space, we can actually go up to 60, 70, 80 people if need be. She's already talking about next year. So they really want us. They had a chess event there in one of the larger rooms, about 200, and it went over really well. So, I think the area sells itself, and it's an area, if I were back east or Midwest, hovering around 0 degrees, it would be a nice break to go to.
Absolutely.
For sure. Now, one thing that I wanted to parallel with our first guest, David, is that you've done quite well at nationals in your past as well, including 3 separate titles. Now, not Division I titles. You're certainly an expert level player, but this is going back a little way. So why don't you tell us the story there?
Well, I got into the game around 1997, and I don't learn as quick as these young guys like Jack. So I guess that means I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time to win the Division 4, 3, and 2, or it just means I learned a lot slower than. So I took my time going up. I got married. I have 2 kids around that time, so my tournament schedule was not anything like it was pre-kids.
Right.
And I've been alternating between Division 1 and 2, but I'm leaning towards going to Reno this summer. So, yeah, it's kind of nice. And there's only one player that's under 35 that knew about that, and that was Rafi Stern. He said, "Weren't you the guy that won 3 divisionals?" Yes, in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago. Because it really is a different era in the game now when we have all these millennials and that are players that are coming up after, I guess, Generation Z. And that's what I want to try to develop. That's the other part. Besides, this is just the tournament. I'm going to start doing club flyers to many of the college campuses out here, UCLA, USC, and grassroots. You got to promote the clubs first. And we want to get the next Jack Peters or Zach Ansell or all these super young guys, and it's got to start at the club level.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Now, Ken, do you ever play in that New York club? I know you're in New York. We don't have to.
So I used to. I mean, we have an amazing club, obviously in Manhattan. Joel's been running it for a long time. It's made famous by Word Freak. It's actually where I first read about the club. I was like, oh wait, isn't that like 10 minutes away from where I am? I should probably go there. I played there a lot in my first run at Scrabble when I was younger in high school and college. I haven't played there much since. I usually work. I sometimes will work at night, and Thursday nights when the club runs, it's not really a great time. But we've started to have New York tournaments. Cornelia Guest has run a number of tournaments over the last year and a half, and I've gone to a number of those. And that's the same kind of contingent that goes to the Manhattan Club. And that's been a lot of fun. There's also play at different locations, Whole Foods on Sundays and things like that. So there is some activity going on in the city, and now we have a lot of really good players. A lot of different young players have moved to the city. Jesse Day lives here. Cesar lives here.
Right.
And Mac goes to school at Columbia. And then many players of all levels and all ratings. So New York has always been a big hub, but no, I haven't been to the Manhattan Club in quite a while, but it's a great club to go play. Obviously, it's one of the premier clubs in the country, I would say.
Yeah.
Quick question on that, Ken.
Sure.
Is there I read something in Word Freak. Is there still wagering encouraged or allowed there?
From what I remember that, yeah, for sure there were bets. There were some tense moments with that. With certain characters, and when I say character, because I mean character, in addition to individual, but I would be the wrong person to ask because I haven't been there in a while, but I definitely remember it was very competitive, and definitely there's some characters there, including some wagering. But I'm all for that. And you know what? I think Manhattan Club 56 was ahead of its times because now sports betting is becoming more legalized and more accepted.
Right.
So they knew that was good, and now maybe everyone else is catching up.
Yeah, maybe that's something that can run alongside the PCO, right?
And David, what is the club scene? I can reverse the question for you. The club scene in California. I totally agree that developing at the grassroots, targeting younger players, that's absolutely the right way to go, and it's very valuable work. I mean, what's the club scene like in the state overall?
Well, I can only speak to Southern California. The clubs here, some of them have dwindled as some of the older players have passed on, or they're not as mobile anymore. But we have a club on almost every day of the week out here, a couple in Orange County. But the premier club, if anybody is ever in the LA area, is in Hollywood. There's free parking. It's right on Santa Monica Boulevard. And that is run by Alan Stern. Most of you know him from emceeing a few of the nationals, the guy with the good jokes. And
right. Yeah, thank you. That helped.
Bruce runs a Saturday club. And so there's quite a few clubs out here, maybe not nearly as strong as the New York or the Berkeley clubs. So this is why we're trying to revive it, and it's gonna need to come from the grassroots level. Also, if I could make one more plug here, if John or Chris are watching, I don't know if we're supposed to mention the word war chest, but that war chest would be really well spent going on Words with Friends or doing targeted ads on radio, because that would be another nice source of the younger player to bring them into the game.
Speaking of Words with Friends, Josh, if I can just give a little anecdote. I mean, we talked a little bit in the beginning about how I went to med school, and I think anyone who sits in a classroom has the experience of everyone on their laptops, either working or online on Facebook doing crosswords. There was a time when I was in med school where Words with Friends was all the rage, and I would look around the room and everyone was playing Scrabble, and I was thinking, my mind is being blown. What is going on here? And I don't know what's happened since then, but there definitely is that appeal. I mean, everyone knows Scrabble. They may not all be playing it, but everyone knows Scrabble, and there's always opportunity. It's just a matter of having the right organizational effort to go after it. But people know the game, and people like the game.
Yeah. And certainly there's, for every 6 or 8 players you bring to the club, and we have a couple of younger players, one of those 6 to 8 will swim, and the others will just move on or sink. And so it's a numbers game at that point.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, bringing up the 2 parts, I think number one, the term war chest. I'm still not sure who coined that term. I've got a great interview with Chris Cree where he explains that he never uses that term, that it's a strategic reserve fund, number one.
I'm wondering if it's more of a Al Gore type of lockbox that never gets touched.
No, listen, there are some things on that front where, like, we do the national streaming, which we've seen some recent success with that, with taking those games, throwing them on YouTube and stuff like that, where we've gotten a lot of eyes on our organization. The real question is, how do we capitalize on that tension? And one of the projects that I'm involved in is trying to create this sort of analytics and infrastructure to track when we do kind of campaigns, what the conversion rate is like, really looking at how we do at the top of the sales funnel, so to speak. But yeah, there is some long-term thinking along those lines. And I agree with you that sort of paid outreach is important. But I want to see it alongside a plan to do that kind of tracking.
Definitely. We only want to repeat advertise where it's being successful.
What's that, sorry?
We only want to continue to advertise in the avenues where it's successful.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So, yeah, and then in terms of Words with Friends, yeah, absolutely. They definitely had a moment. I think Words with Friends is still, relatively popular, but it'd be interesting to know the user counts on, like, the Scrabble EA app versus Words with Friends, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe those two have sort of evened out a little bit. Any thoughts there, Ken? Have you been in a room where you've seen people playing the EA Scrabble app, or just Words with Friends?
I don't see that many people anymore. I'm in this room with my screen. But no, I was tutoring a student 2 years ago. And when I told her about Scrabble, and I don't like to talk too much about it because I don't want to talk about myself, talk about them. But she said, "Oh, that's so cool. Teach me how to play Scrabble." Now, of course, she didn't really mean it because she didn't have the patience to actually have me teach her how to play Scrabble. But I went along with it, and we actually started a Words with Friends game. Like every 3 days, one of us would make a move, and we were playing over the weeks. And then I realized, I guess that's how a lot of people are playing. They're not playing in one sitting like I would always play either on ISC or in person. They have these running games, and it's just part of the texting social media firmament, I guess. Like, oh, let me check in on my Scrabble game, see if I'm playing. And what that means, I don't know. I don't have too much insight on that. But again, I think this idea that, like, the game has a little bit of a hold on people. It's just,
there's no question.
More to do tournaments and take it seriously. That's a question I know many have been pondering for a while.
Right. We had 4 of us I went to my first Crescent City Cup. 4 of us from Club 44 in Los Angeles. And 2 of those, I think, are under 30 players, Billy Nakamura
Yes,
and Ine
who I
Guo.
think is watching. I think
Probably
Billy's watching. Yeah.
And so, those type of players, those are new to our club, and that brought our median age down by about 40 years.
Nice. Okay, and sorry, I think just to remind people, Pacific Coast Open, beautiful location. What are the dates?
March 2nd and 3rd. And remember, February is a short month. Now, we were going to be one of the first tournaments in the country to use the new words, but somebody has usurped me. Is that the word? They got special permission, but still break out that new word list on the flight or the ride over, because already I've looked at it and I've seen opportunities for some of those words to be of value in the games.
For sure. We finally get internet, right? That's new in that lexicon, and we're on an internet show here, so that's exciting. Okay, so David, I want to thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation, and I hope people go on to Cross Tables, check out that Pacific Coast Open. I love Southern California. I've been to LA a couple of times, San Diego a few more times, but I mean, you really can't get better weather than Southern California.
Right, appreciate
and March tournament season. I'm a big tennis fan. We just had the Australian Open. Indian Wells is one of the premier U.S. tournaments around out in California, so might as well go play some Scrabble, then maybe hang out and go to Indian Wells. Enjoy the weather.
That's a terrific tournament at Indian Wells.
Nice.
Awesome.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much, David. I'm sure we'll talk to you again. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, Josh.
No problem. Let's bring Ken back in here. Okay, Ken, we are over time. You'll see. I bet you'll notice how quickly the time goes by. So I want to touch on
Scrabble all night with all of our favorite friends and characters.
I want to talk about a couple of other quick news items. Atlantic City. Have you ever played Atlantic City before?
I have. I played in my first iteration through Scrabble. I played and I didn't do terribly. It was one of the only Division I tournaments where I didn't embarrass myself my first go around.
Nice.
So I have sort of fond memories of it.
Sweet. I played Atlantic City once. I got snowed in. But the headline here, you can see the little picture up here. Howard Pistol was the winner of Atlantic City, played a tough TWL field, and really ended up, I think, like almost 3 games up on everybody, went 17-3.
Very
and it was
impressive.
his 16th Atlantic City tournament. So long-time expert player for sure. But there were a lot of people who had eyes on some of the other top seeds there. So congratulations to Howard. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was some upcoming tournaments. So these are the ones that I've got my eyes on that I wanted to talk with you about, Ken. And number one is Ottawa versus Montreal, which you may not be all that familiar with. But we have a number of these tournaments up in Canada where it's like one city versus another. So it would be like doing, New York versus Chicago, or New York versus Boston, or something like that, where you trot out teams, you meet on neutral ground, and you battle it out for a city title. What city would you like to play against in a grudge match like that?
I would like to play against the city in California where David Pearl is hosting his tournament. Everyone should get out there wherever it is. Josh, remind me and our audience, which city exactly is that tournament in?
Well, it's in like Orange County, so that's LA, right? Or just outside of LA? I think that's right.
Then I would like to go head-to-head with LA in March for the Pacific Open.
Yeah, go to, just south of LA. But go to Cross Tables. You'll find all the information there. The other one is there's a Super Bowl Sunday Scrabble tournament that's going on, I think, in Brooklyn. This is a Linda Wansell tournament. Would you ever play a tournament on Super Bowl Sunday?
Normally, I consider myself a contrarian, and I embrace that aspect. That may be too much for me. I mean, normally on Super Bowl Sunday, I'm trying to watch the Super Bowl. There are only 1 or 2 times I haven't when I've been so overwhelmed with work or there was some major issue. But I think it's great that there is a tournament because not everyone wants to watch the Super Bowl. After all, it is a football game. It's more than the commercials. And these days, if you want to watch anything from TV, you just go online. So if you don't love football and you don't want to watch a Super Bowl, go play Scrabble. Why not? That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm glad it's an offering.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I think that happens at Linda's house. So it's a very small group, and it starts at like 10 in the morning. So maybe you're done by kickoff or something. And
if it's still going on, if you're not playing well, just go watch the Super Bowl at Linda's house on TV. I'm sure she has a nice HD TV in her living room.
Exactly. The other two tournaments I wanted to touch on. Number one is Kingston. I've talked about this every time we've done an episode. This is a tournament that I am helping to run with my friends Jackson Smiley and Sean Abbasi. And we're excited to have, I think we're sitting at 60 registered players. We've managed to grow it in 3 years from 40 to 50 to 60. We're hoping we end up over 60. We've still got a couple of weeks to go. It takes place over the President's Day weekend, or what we would call a Family Day weekend, up here in Ontario. And I'm excited to announce you're going to be coming to the tournament. Is that right?
I'm going to be at Kingston. For me, this is a big deal. I'm really looking forward. Some of my favorite people in Scrabble are going to be there. Unfortunately, Jack Peters had to drop out, but it's all right. I'll pass him in rating and we'll laugh about it afterwards. So that'll be fine. But I usually don't travel that far. I mean, it's very far from New York, but I'm going to do it. And I'm super excited to get out there with you guys.
Is this your first international tournament?
This is my first international tournament. The closest I played in Buffalo Nationals, that's right on the border. Oh, and I played in Niagara Falls a couple of years ago.
Oh, so it's not your first international.
Oh, no, actually. Oh, sorry for the audience. That's a bit of a letdown. No, it's not. It's my second international tournament, and hopefully it will go better than Niagara Falls, in which I cried a bit after that tournament. That was a tough one. But I'm really excited. Apparently the hotel is great. The city is great. I had a lovely conversation with the hotel man on staff when I made my reservation. Nice. I'm psyched. I'm ready to go.
No, we're really happy. We started at a hotel which served our purposes really well, but we've really gone up a level there, and we've created what we hope is going to be a successful partnership going forward. They're certainly in on that kind of work. They've been very happy with the business we've been able to bring in, so we think we're going to be able to offer everybody a really good experience.
Is it too late to register for Kingston?
No, absolutely not. Thank you for asking the question. People can still register. We're about almost 3 weeks away, so this is in Kingston, Ontario. Where that is, for people who don't know, is it's kind of it's just above northern New York. So we're hoping to draw players basically from upstate New York, from Toronto, from Montreal, and from Ottawa. And we have a really nice cross-section of players from those different areas.
And Manhattan.
Absolutely.
For the few weirdos who are willing to go.
And hell, we'll take Michigan, we'll take Ohio, New Jersey. All of this stuff is drivable distances. And so we think we're going to put on a good time. The last tournament, and certainly check Cross Tables, check Facebook. There's some fun videos that Jackson, Sean, and I put together promoting the tournament. The next tournament that I wanted to talk about was Saratoga Springs. Now, this is a tournament that I believe both of us plan to attend. Are you in for Saratoga?
Absolutely. In one of my recent tournaments at Lake George, I believe I almost got stranded overnight in Saratoga. So I'm looking to get back there and not get stranded.
I see. What happened? Tell us the story.
Well, so this was Lake George, not 2018. This was Lake George 2017. Mm-hmm. And I missed my ride. Someone was going to drive back to the city. And it was one of these weekends where just the hotel was closing. That's part of like what happens with the Tiki, where this tournament is held. It's, our tournament is the last weekend that they're open for the season before they close for the winter. And the whole hotel shut down. The whole town, it seemed like, was shutting down. It was me and the nice lady at the front desk and her elderly aunt, and who she was driving someplace, and that was it. And she drove me to Saratoga, where I waited for 4 hours for a bus in the middle of nowhere. And I'm here to tell the story, but I'm hoping it'll go more smoothly this time.
I see. My trapped Scrabble tournament happened in Atlantic City. Huge snowstorm. My flight was canceled back. Then I had I was going to take a flight. What was I going to do? Maybe bus to New York and flight to Toronto. Anyway, everything was canceled, right? They actually wrapped the tournament about 6 hours early. They sort of worked out the schedule to get us playing a little longer the day before because you could tell the storm was coming. And so everything was canceled. I was trying to figure out, okay, who can give me a ride to New York City or whatever it was, and there didn't really seem to be much action there. And then I'm like, wait, I'm in this giant casino hotel in Atlantic City. I know there's a storm coming, but I don't think the electricity is going down on a giant hotel and casino. So
what did you do?
I just booked a room for 2 more nights and just hunkered down. So anyway, that's always my recommendation.
Probably all have a story. I know we're at the 1 hour mark here. Can I just say one more thing about these upcoming tournaments?
Please. I want to cover a couple things on Saratoga, but go ahead.
Oh, actually, I'll say it at the end.
Okay. So Saratoga is run by Annette Tedesco. You've been to Annette's tournaments before. If you haven't been to an Annette tournament, I'm going to suggest that you go. It's one of the things that makes these series of tournaments, and that would be New Year's, 4th of July, Lake George, and now Saratoga Springs, which hasn't been around for a while. This is the first time it's back in a number of years, is just the way Annette welcomes everybody and hosts everybody. I consider Annette to be one of my Scrabble mentors in terms of the way she deals with people and makes people feel comfortable. In a way that I haven't always found in every tournament that I've been to. And the other thing is this is supposed to be this hotel, the Gideon Putnam Hotel. I don't know if that's a person's name or what those words mean. Yes, very posh, but still with a good hotel rate. But they have a lovely spa there. So I wanted to test your knowledge with a couple of very quick questions about spas, all right?
I am definitely not ready, but I'm up for it. So
okay, so here is the question. What do you think is more expensive to get done at a spa? I looked at their spa offerings. Do you think a French manicure or a French pedicure? Now, you're a doctor. You should be able to figure out the difference between those two procedures.
From personal experience, I'm trying to sort of remember for me, what I paid more for. What we're talking about, a French manicure or a French pedicure?
Yes.
Well, I definitely think it's the pedicure.
Why do you think that?
Well, manicures, I know they're both kind of common. Hands are maybe more palatable to most people. For example, one might shake hands with others in certain settings. Feet, though, are generally more private and more delicate, and I think it maybe requires a slightly higher level of craftsmanship and skill and sort of patience maybe to work on someone's feet. So I'm going to say going with pedicure slightly more expensive than the manicure.
Okay, you're absolutely correct. I think that's interesting the way you thought that out. I got one more for you. These are, and there's some medical terms in these, so I think you're the perfect person to ask. So which do you think is more expensive? This is listed under clinical facials. Okay, so getting some face work done. So what do you think is more expensive? The clear Skia, I think it says Skia, probiotic acne facial, or the Pro Enzyme Peel facial?
Well, Josh, I'm glad you asked. As someone who's also done laboratory research in addition to having my hands and feet periodically done at the spa, I can tell you that enzymes are very expensive. You have to keep them in little test tubes, little vials. You'd be shocked at how much money researchers will spend to acquire the right enzymes. Enzymes can also be denatured or broken down quite easily if they're in the wrong conditions, and it takes a lot of maintenance. So I'm going to say that anything that requires enzymes is a little more finicky, and that's going to cost a little bit more. You
are absolutely incorrect. No. It's the probiotic acne facial. I think it's more, there are 5 words in the more expensive one and 4 words in the cheaper one. but about a $20 difference there. Anyway, the point is, check out Saratoga Springs. They've had a really nice jump on cross tables recently. They're up to about 47. For a long time, they were sort of in the 30s, but they've taken a bunch more people, and now I'm worried they're going to close the gap on Kingston in terms of the number of people attending. So definitely check out Saratoga Springs. That comes up the weekend of February 23rd, 24th, somewhere in and around there.
And let me just add, since I know we must be at the end here, if you're thinking of reasons beyond what we've said to playing Kingston or Saratoga, I can't think of a better preparation for David Pearl's Pacific Open the first week in March, just outside of LA. That's David Pearl's Pacific Open. Let's recruit the young players. Let's gain momentum. Let's build some community on the West Coast. Great way to tune up playing Kingston or Saratoga or the other 2 tournaments that you listed, Josh. Very
good. And David mentions in the comments 100% prize payout. That's pretty good. Does that mean there are no fees? Yeah. Is that 100% after fees, David? Maybe you need to clarify. Very high prize payouts. That's what we'll say there.
That's what we're looking for.
Less room rental at NASPA. So nothing being taken for the director or for the staff or whatever. So 100% after expenses. Now, very quickly, I want to run through my favorite part of the show. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight, and I want to cover some Scrabble birthdays here. I'm going to read through the list. Ken, I'm sure you're going to help me in wishing a happy birthday to Daniel Goodwin, Jeremy Canman. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. David Leonard, Rachel Bingham, Trish Harrop, one of my all-time faves, Guy Ingram, who I saw was watching the show earlier. I don't know if he is anymore or not. Love Guy. And very special, I always like to make a big deal about people who are born on the day of the show. There are very special birthday babies, and that is today, Joe Roberdeau. It's his birthday, so happy birthday to Joe. And Ken, I want to thank you for joining me on the show. I know we've taken an hour here away from your quackling, so I apologize for that. But this is, like I said before, I'm just delighted that you could join me on the show, and I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for organizing, for everything that you're doing with the social media for Scrabble. And I look forward to hanging out with you and our crew at Kingston and Saratoga.
For sure. And maybe the Pacific Coast Open. Okay.
Everyone should check out the Pacific Open run by David Pearl, March 3rd. Go for it.
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next week with another show with a new guest host and maybe a new interview subject. So we'll go from there. But thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to David. And we'll see you next time. Keep playing Scrabble. Your directors are working hard for you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.